Pues empezamos, Yolanda, ¿ok? Pues bienvenidos aquí a todos los que estáis hoy aquí con nosotros. Estos días han sido súper interesantes y ahora tenemos el placer de tener aquí a Abel.
And he's going to tell a story on his company.
Y voy a hacer la presentación del interview en inglés, así que los que necesitéis auriculares, hay que hacerlo, o si no. I will switch to English now, so Bas can understand me.
I'll switch to English.
Let's start with a brief presentation.
Especializado en diseño de la interacción, entusiasta de la corriente hazlo tú mismo y apasionado de la filosofía y la antropología cultural, Abel es el impulsor de varios proyectos de diseño abierto. Uno de ellos es Fairphone, que ofrece teléfonos móviles más sostenibles cuyos materiales no provienen de zonas de conflicto. Tecnología comprometida éticamente con el medio ambiente y los derechos sociales y laborales.
Sorry for the sound problem. Sorry? The phone, maybe? Too close to your microphone? Me? Some interruptions?
Maybe if I go, then it will work.
Please stay with us.
Does it work?
I don't know, is it me? Can we have this solved? Hello? I don't know,
This is working, right? Yes.
Probably this.
There's too many phones, I think.
No, it's running. And I just messed up my microphone, so we start off pretty well. Is it okay? Technicians.
So,
Well, anyway, I mean, you hear us. I hope the.
Especializado en diseño de la interacción, entusiasta de la corriente hazlo tú mismo y apasionado de la filosofía y la antropología cultural, Abel es el impulsor de varios proyectos de diseño abierto. Uno de ellos es Fairphone, que ofrece teléfonos móviles más sostenibles cuyos materiales no provienen de zonas de conflicto. Tecnología comprometida éticamente con el medio ambiente y los derechos sociales y laborales.
Okay, second try.
yeah.
Bas, thanks for coming here, and it's a real pleasure to have a real hacker here. You have hacked your way to Malaga, actually,
Yeah.
with Fairphone. Shall we start with a brief question to the audience about who's using which operation system here? Who of you uses iPhone? Raise your hands, please. iPhone, yeah, okay, more or less half. And Android? The other half? A little bit more, right?
That's good, yeah.
So how many use Fairphone? Wow. One, two. Big applause. So after this presentation, we hope to have all of you Fairphone.
The free hugs for Fairphone users.
But
I also had a question. So I was wondering who of you has been able or has changed the battery of their phone recently?
Anybody?
A few?
Three. Okay, four.
Four. Okay, because a lot of these, a lot of these phones you can't even open them, right? So.
I have ever tried to change my battery on an iPhone. I think it's impossible, right?
It's possible, but it's dangerous also.
Not the best thing for a family father to hijack my iPhone. Bas, tell us something about how you embrace this absolutely crazy story of Fairphone, because how do somebody just invent a new phone and come up to compete with Apple or Samsung and the rest?
Well, first of all, we didn't start this to invent a phone. I've been working a lot with, on the one side, the digital world, sharing, open source, did a lot of open source programming. And then on the other side, I've been involved with Fab Labs, open hardware a lot. So I've always looked at how can you combine the virtual world with the physical world, how do they relate? But also looking at my own background, I've studied art. So I'm a trained artist.
Oh, wow.
Whatever that might be. But I also did engineering, so electrical engineering, mechanical engineering in Delft at the Technical University. And what I really liked about that combination is that it really helped me to contextualize stuff that I like making. Yeah, so I like making stuff, I like taking apart stuff, but I also like to look at what is the system behind that. And in that sense, I've always been using stuff and things around me to understand how the world works. And at a certain point, if you're a designer and you get a container of shit back, a lot of stuff back, that is, it's magic, but it's also it's pretty confronting. And
problem.
Yeah, no, it's not a conscious problem. It's just like it's a fascination of finding out, what happens behind the scenes. And I think if you, one of my favorite designers is Dan Hill, and he always talks about design in the context of creating Trojan horses and dark matter. And it's basically the dark matter is, if you look at the universe, you have, I think it's 99% of the stuff in the universe you don't see. It's just there. And with stuff like phones or tables or whatever you see around you, it's the same. It's there, but there's 99%
just dark
matter that made it that it's here. Because it does start somewhere in a mine, somebody digging into the ground and getting a stone.
So this is where you said, okay, I have to dig into one of the handhelds most of us have and use.
Yeah,
so you decided to go to phones, actually. Why did you choose the phones?
A phone has a beautiful paradox, because it's, on the one hand, we love our phones. There's even a word, you got like these crazy words. 75% of the people here are actually suffering from nomophobia. You don't know it, but you're actually suffering from it.
Interesting.
And nomophobia stands for no mobile phone phobia, which is, it's really a word. It's really something, you can look it up, Wikipedia. I don't know if Wikipedia is like the holy grail of reality, but it's there.
So what happens if we are not connected? Is that what is explained?
Yeah, the crazy thing is that it's one of the most precious things we have, and we get panic attacks if we don't have it with us. Yeah. Nomophobia. You even have, in China you have lanes where you can walk while having your WhatsApp. So you can actually, they have special lanes for people that want to use it for zombie lanes, yeah. Oh, cool. So you don't bump into other people. But the crazy thing is that we do not, and we've been talking a lot about internet and the virtual world, but what we tend to forget is that all this communication and all this virtual, like all these bits and bytes, they consist, they are there because of atoms, because of the physical stuff, because of the stuff we make. It's infrastructures, it's resources, it's still our supply chain that supplies us with all the communication devices and everything around us that made it possible to act in a virtual world and to connect. So the really beautiful thing about a phone is that it's probably one of the most difficult pieces of technology, which is a commodity at the moment. And it's like a black box. We present it like a black box.
Exactly.
So technology, we've alienated from it. We don't know, nobody knows how a phone is made, and we don't even relate to it anymore. But on the other hand, we relate to everything about the phone because we use it every day. So when have we stopped asking the questions, who made this, where does it come from, how is it made? And that is really,
tell us.
Well, that is the beautiful thing.
Please, because I think Fairphone is one of which takes you apart from the Apples, from the Samsungs, is the supply chain.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think this is something we would like to have you shown us here. Why Fairphone is so different towards the others. What makes you different, and what's the same, probably?
Yeah, I think first of all, and that makes it. I'll start with the more theoretical stuff, and that is it's actually connected to this picture you see here. These women are they're called Jain, and so in India you have the Jain, and the Jain they have these mouth caps on and they have brooms, and they make clear the way when they walk. And I always thought that they actually did that to prevent themselves from inhaling bacteria. But why they do it, and to not get sick themselves, but they do it because they don't want to kill bacteria. So they actually clean the way to not step on these little animals and all these little creatures. And they have these mouth caps to not inhale them, and then by accident kill a bacteria or a small insect. So
difficult life.
It's a very difficult life, but I use this image. I use it a lot also to imagine. If you are in sustainability, and it really helps me a lot. This image, also the tragedy of it. If you're in sustainability, there is no right or wrong. There's no black or white. There's no win-win always. Sustainability is a very dirty business. And the reason for that is that it's full of dilemmas. And this is probably the biggest dilemma we have as human beings. That when we're creating, and being created ourselves, through whatever you believe in, God or science, we're also destroying. So by creating, we're destroying. And that means that while we're living, we do kill creatures. We do use resources. So the only way to look at sustainability and really do something about it is to go beyond dogmas. The dogma of you say I make fair phones, and then somebody says, is it 100% fair? You say, no, of course not. It's not possible. You say, oh, but why do you call it Fairphone then? So, okay, good question. But it's that kind of discussion that we have to mature beyond. Okay, so if you're a vegetarian, you shouldn't wear leather shoes as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's accepting the fact that if you go into sustainability, it's really about accepting the fact that you will run into these dilemmas and that you will face them as a human being. And I think if you as a company are able to face dilemmas, sustainability, as a human being, really put human values in the core of your thinking, that's what really makes you different from any other company that has been set up in a totally different time, with a totally different context, in the 70s, 80s, 90s. So that's the start of the thinking around Fairphone. And as a designer, I've learned as well, with everything I create, I also destroy.
Because you use.
Exactly. And that means that if you're a phone company, one of the principles should be, I don't want to sell too many phones to a single individual, which is very bad for business, I can tell you.
How is our lifespan with phones?
So the lifespan with phones is, I think it's around 18 months to, well, you did the video on it, 18 months, right? To 2 years, something like that. So, and we aim at 5 years. So what we say is, well, here's a very simple calculation. If you are able to have people use their phone twice as long, then you only need to produce half the amount of phones. It's simple. So sustainability is about behavior. It's about making those choices because you're in control a lot. So as a consumer or a customer, you have a lot of control over these things. So we've looked at the supply chain in terms of where's the, you do life cycle assessments, so we do have scientific explanations. And then you go into, if you dive into it, you see that once the phone is in your hand, most of the dirty stuff has already been done. I'll run through the dirty stuff because that's also an interesting part, but it's been done already. So then why not use that product longer so you extend its lifetime and you don't have to make another product. And then you can focus on recycling, you can focus on water management, but we focus on making sure people use it.
What is normally the first thing that breaks with the phone?
The screen.
The screen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the screen is what part of the resources? Can we figure out how much, like the screen of the phone makes up like 20% of the resources we have to extract from the production lane, from Africa, from?
Well,
screen, then maybe the camera, or
it's very difficult to say because there's, if you look at coltan, if you go back two pictures, I guess you can see the stone. Can you rewind one or two? Okay. So this guy, actually, is a picture in a mine. I was in Congo, Eastern Congo. In the last, so let's go back to the eyes of the phone. Through the eyes of the phone, if you take a phone and you would walk through the supply chain, you'll run into this stuff. Because the beauty about our supply chain, and that I think that is really, we keep saying that the world is messed up and that we need new systems, but we have a beautiful system. The beautiful system is that we are able to make a phone, this, together, and we start in a mine, digging into the ground, getting stones up. And then everything between having that stone and having that phone is magic. It just happens. It's our market economy that actually makes that happen without somebody telling someone what to do.
$600 afterwards.
It's added value, but that's a different. The difference is how do you look at the value system around that, or do you look at the fact that it's possible to make something as complex as a phone? Well, not one individual understands the complexity of the phone, and it's so the beauty of it is that we need each other, and we do help each other to make something like a phone.
Wow.
And that if you then go to the mines, and that's what we did. So we started in the mines. We said we're going to find out through the eyes of the phone basically how the world works. And then you run into anthropology, you run into technology, you run into like people, into conflicts, like here in Congo.
Essex.
Yeah, so in Eastern Congo in the last 10, 15 years, millions of people have died in conflicts related to the mining of minerals we use in our mobile phones or other electronics as well. It's what you run into if you start looking at the minerals, and it's actually a lot of the stuff in the phone is still handmade. People just get it out of the mines, and that stuff ends up in factories like this.
This is China?
I don't know where it is. It could be, it's in Asia somewhere. You have Chinese factories, like huge factories. You have, I think Foxconn has factories where there's a million, I think they have 1.3 million employees.
In one city factory?
Yeah, they have like one city where they make a lot of stuff, which doesn't say they're bad per se. Yeah. But we all know that our economic system drives for low prices, fast production. So they work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, and and then eventually there's a phone that comes from that factory.
So there's where you said, okay, so this is the supply chain we see, and how can we make it more sustainable, more ethic?
Yeah. So if a phone is not a banana. So it's really about, and I'm saying that because, if you look at the fair trade principles of a banana, you say, okay, let's look at the supply chain and then control every element and make sure it happens in the right way. It's very difficult already. It took 20, 25 years to get that in place. This phone, I'm not sure. So just a wild guess. Is there somebody who wants to guess on how many components we have on the bill of material, they call it, in our factory? So the factory that actually puts it together.
Anyone? Any guesses? 10, 50, 100, 200, 300?
More. It's 1,200. So we have 1,200 components that we have to manage in the supply chain, which the factory also manages. And those 1,200 components are made by hundreds and hundreds of factories. And it's not components that are a single source material. It's actually those factories have factories as well. And those factories have factories as well. So before you know it, you're dealing with thousands and thousands and thousands of stakeholders, companies, factories that move and come back and die, and that is your supply chain. If you want to control that, forget it. Just forget it. It's not. It's the beauty of our market system that we're able to actually make stuff that way. But we also have to accept that we will. If we really want to understand these complexities, we have to make them less complex. If you make them less complex, you can start working in an autarkic system, but you lose welfare. Yeah, so it's really about, I believe that our goal, and this has been a great inspiration for us, by the way, but our goal was to tell stories and to have people relate to what's happening in the supply chain, instead of just explaining everything to the detail how it works, because you don't know. Mm-hmm. And this is a project by Thomas Thwaites. This is a toaster. And I think it's one of the most beautiful designs. For me, it's one of the most beautiful designs I've ever seen, because Thomas Thwaites, he bought a toaster for £2–3 in a shop. And he asked himself, how is it possible that you can make something for £2–3? And this was his graduation project. And he said, I'm going to make my own toaster. So he went to
This is a toaster?
A toaster, yeah. If you do the next image, you'd probably see it back. Yeah, there you have it.
Oh, okay. Now we see the slots over there.
Yeah. So the nice thing about this toaster is that it looks very alienating at the one hand, but it shows how it's made. So it's really weird that something that shows how it's made is, in our eyes, ugly. It's not functional. It's dangerous. Whereas something that's made, by machines, and you don't even know how it's made. You just accept the fact that it looks like that. And I think here, the great thing what happened with Thomas is that he went when he started making this toaster, he went down the supply chain, and he got in contact with people that worked in mines, and they were telling all kinds of stories, and he started blogging these stories around how he was making his toaster. And of course, the thing, it only worked once because it caught fire and it burned.
It looks like it.
But Thomas Thwaites learned what we've just been discussing, that you cannot make a toaster by yourself. Something as simple as a toaster. We need each other for that. But he also learned that we've got lost in, we got disconnected from all the stories of the people that are involved into making a product. So for Fairphone, it's really about how do we make people connect with that product again, and really change also maybe the design paradigm, change the way people use their product. Because if you want, and then if you go back to how do you get people to use their phone longer, well, you can create it in such a way that it's it doesn't break as fast, that you can actually, if it breaks, you can replace components. But if the customer doesn't want to keep it for 5 years, you can design whatever you want, but it doesn't work. So
that's part of education in this?
It's not education. I'd see it more part as offering a added value experience on your product. Because if you buy a bar of chocolate with a story and you know where it comes from, it tastes better, right? For me, it does. It's really, if I buy it in a shop where you have, here also you find shops where there's more, where you feel that relationship.
Well, all the bio industry is running basically on feelings, on feeling good.
Yeah. But how? So the question is, it works. So you have ethical consuming. You have conscious consuming. You have people that care about where the stuff comes from. Why isn't it happening in electronics? Why isn't it happening in politics? Why isn't it happening? It's really about.
Where's my politician from?
Well, politics is also. Politics is really about. We've alienated quite from politics as well. We kind of outsource the whole thing to politicians. And I think it's all those things that become so difficult in a postmodern world, like technology, like political systems, because they have to manage this complexity. That we have to find these relationships again without losing the power of those systems.
Right. You have brought some videos as well.
Yeah, I got a nice video maybe as an intermezzo from. No, Milton Friedman. Let's do that when we're
at the end.
It's the one with. Well, the other one. I think I had only two, so. And it's actually very funny. It shows how hooked we are with technology and how it's marketed as well. Yeah.
Some people actually get mad. Why would they make another product I desperately want to buy? Those bastards. It's almost as if the new iPhone somehow ruins the old iPhone, but it doesn't. It's all in your head. In fact, we set a camera out on the street today. We told people outside to check out the new iPhone 5, which is unavailable so far. So in reality, what they were looking at is the current iPhone 4S that everyone has. And, well, here's how that experiment played out.
The new iPhone 5 just came out today. We want to know if you'll take a look at it and tell us how it compares to the last iPhone.
I'd love to.
Oh, it's way better. That's definitely noticeably better. It's a little thinner. Looks like the screen's a little bigger.
Seems a little bit faster.
Yeah. Faster, lighter.
Feels heavier.
Feels heavier?
I think so. A lot lighter than the last one. It's a lot faster as well.
Mine's gonna take forever.
So this one's faster?
Yeah, definitely faster. Right on.
Oh, it looks very nice. Very
well,
nice,
I think you can kill it because it goes on and on and on.
Just a lot higher quality. It's got, if you drop it, it looks like it's not going to break. Like
Oh,
this
it's
one has a million times. The screen is clear, HD. Colors are brighter.
Is that Hulk Hogan?
Yeah, I think it was Hulk Hogan, yeah.
Video front and back, that's cool. That doesn't have that.
So you like it better than the last one?
Yeah, I have the 4S.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm always open for a new phone.
Yeah, so...
Perception.
Perception. Yeah, it's so weird, but it's... I think it's how we've been raised as well. And then we talk about... I think there's not, like I said, there's nothing wrong with our economic system if you just look at the mechanisms, how it works and what we're able to create. But it's really, I think the growth trap is kind of the worry thing, the worrying part about it, and also the disconnect. I don't want to become too Marxistic, but if you look at what division of labor has done to the joy of working, the relation we have with our work, how we relate to that work. Because just as an example, if you go to the mines, like this is also in Congo, we were there 5 years ago. Yeah, this is one of the first trips. And we just went there because we didn't have anything. We said, we're going to go to Congo, we're going to make a phone. And the only thing we did, I made a business card with, it said CEO on it. And I'm like,
you're the star.
I'm the director of a phone company. I didn't know I was going to be a real director of a phone company, but that was the irony of the whole situation. But I went there, and the only thing we did was, yes, we're going to make a phone, and can you show us a mine where you can find fair trade minerals? And then the people said, like, fair? What do you mean with fair? It's like, well, where people have good work conditions, where people go, where there's no conflict. And they go, oh, yeah, sure, of course we know. We go to the mine, lots of children, all nicely working.
Happily working.
Yeah, happy working, so really fair. But to be able to actually to get there in the mine, and that was my first, I think the first kind of executive decision I needed to make, like the executive, like tough executive decision was, am I going to bribe the Minister of Communication of Congo for $250 to be able to film or not. And of course, I bribed him because it was the only way to start filming there. Because we were there and we wanted to show what was going on. And the craziest thing is that we wanted that relationship from the mines, bringing that story from the mines all the way to the consumer. And we also wanted to show how difficult it is, what kind of dilemmas you run into. This is what I started with. Like, you will run into stuff you rather not want to do. So for this, we actually, we were at a mine and we asked around people, and they thought it was totally fair what they were doing. Like with the kids, the Minister of Communication thought it was totally fair to ask me to pay him $250 extra to do it faster. Because I asked him a receipt. He even gave me a receipt. So it was like, oof, this is going to be a very tough ride. But it's what it is. And that is also why I think it's so important to bring those stories of people and how they perceive fairness and how they perceive unfairness. Because I've asked the same question in China, in Ghana we have projects, in Peru we have projects on fair trade gold, we're in Rwanda. Everywhere you come, if you ask what is fair, you get like this whole kind of either very tangible or very practical or very philosophical answer. But it's never the same. Child labor was okay 100 years ago here, or 50 years ago maybe, I don't know. So it changes. It's a cultural perspective, it's a time perspective. But if you ask people what is unfair, they'll go like, well, this, and this. And then it's almost the same everywhere. And that is really interesting if you look at what.
How do you put your ethical criterion on the supply chain? So what if you say, okay, so for Fairphone, when we choose a mine, what are your criteria for that? Because you need the supply chain for factories, for mines, transportation, maybe. So what is your high standard for fair?
Well, I've been asked the same question also in a conference once, like, where do you draw the line? Yeah, so that is maybe the other side. Like, how do you set your standard as best as possible? That is the goal. And of course, we aim at conflict-free mining. So you take the big challenges first. But the dilemmas you run into are that, for example, we work in Congo. We work in Congo because we want to work in Congo, because we want to contribute to an economic situation where it's really bad. But we do that to improve things, and we do conflict-free mining there. It doesn't mean that there's no child labor. Kids work in Congo because there's no school, there's no daycare, there's no system at all. They just take the kids to the mines and they say like, here, help. So we know for sure, 100% sure, that we have child labor in our supply chain. We're making Fairphones. So then where do you draw the line? It becomes very difficult. Do you say, well, I draw the line with child labor? If you do that, then you actually avoid a situation which shouldn't be avoided and you should be contributing to. Because we do have child labor programs. Since we are there, we actually set up, also in Uganda, a child labor-free program with Philips, with Tata Steel, with a lot of other parties that came with us because we were pushing so much for that agenda. A lot of companies, actually, if you look at the Great Lake region in Africa, they just left the region. Like, oh, wait a minute, is there child labor in my supply chain? Let's not go to Africa. Well, that doesn't help, right? No. So they go to Australia. So if you ask me, Bas, where do you draw the line? I seriously don't know. I don't know.
It depends, probably.
It's within the context. The only thing I know is that you should not be doing this if you are not able to put yourself in a vulnerable position. And that's why companies leave. That's why companies do this really weird stuff, because they have a compliance department that tells them, don't do it. Don't go there. The risk is too high. And we only think in risks, and we reward companies even in avoiding risks as shareholders. So how many companies do we actually reward because of taking that risk if they go to countries where there's child labor and speak out loud, yes, we have child labor in our supply chain like anyone else. There's not one, not one company in the world that can say, that makes products that can say we do not have child labor in the supply chain because they don't know. And it's pretty sure that there is child labor somewhere.
I see.
But say it.
So what if we have seen the supply chain, what is the consumer? So what do you face, what problems do you face with bringing Fairphone to the public? So how do you convince, let's say, all our audience here tomorrow next year to raise their hands? We are using Fairphone. What's your challenges here?
Well, the problem is that our challenge lies more with being able to produce phones than with being able to sell phones.
They sell pretty well.
We're always out of stock. And
and that congratulations.
Well, I don't know. That's not really a good thing because the problem is that it's the stock situation comes from how you finance your company. You could just go for venture capital, put like 20, 30 million in the company and grow. Because I do believe that the market is there. The reason why our phone is still a bit steep in pricing compared to other phones is that we have low volumes. Low volumes means that we still need to get into that economies of scales. So if that kicks in, you get it's easier to sell more phones. The problem is that you're in kind of what they call the hardware valley of death. The hardware valley of death is that hardware is super cash intense. You need a lot of cash to actually build a product. So the only way that we were able to do it was actually through crowdfunding. And to just give you an example on the demand, this was the first crowdfunding. I had never made a phone before. Nobody in the team. I did not know how to make phones. The company never made a phone before. We didn't even, it was really about, we're just putting a button on the website and said, buy this phone, and then probably within half a year you will get a phone. So it was not on Kickstarter, it was not on any platform, it was just on our own website. And what happened is that within 3 weeks, we sold 10,000 phones. So I was looking at that, at the bank account, basically. It was like, holy shit, 3.5 million.
Believe we can do it.
So like we only needed 5. We needed to sell 5. It was like 3.5 million euros. And then I started panicking. I started crying. I started crying in my bed at night. And my wife was going like, Bas, come on, you pussy, you can do it. You started this. I said, yeah, but all these people, it's like, let's just pay them back their money, and we show them this. That is good, because what happened was I was a designer, but I changed into an entrepreneur. Like it was, a designer, you can do anything, you're just creative and be strategically naive, and you just say things and people like it.
And you had to build a company
but then it was
from day one, overnight.
So the weird stuff was, we were 3 people, nobody knew how to make a phone, and we sold 10,000 phones. But while I was panicking, we sold actually 15,000 more. Because we sold out. The factory said we can only do 25,000 for the first run because they already got materials for that. So we had 7.5 million on the bank account. We had 25,000 people that wanted, that paid 325 euros for that phone, and expecting us to deliver that phone. And I had no idea if we were able to do it. And you can imagine that, pushing that button. I was sitting. I think it was a Sunday. I had my kids running around. And I went back and forward to China already like 7 times just to make sure that this factory was not going to mess up. And I was just like, am I going to? Yes, I'm going to do it. So I had to transfer like 3 million to the factory. And if I do that, there was no way back. Like that was like, if I push that button, no way back. So
it was a blockchain.
It was a blockchain. It was like that. Everything would go wrong from that moment on. It was like out of my hands. So I transferred that 3 million to the factory, and I pushed the button, and like, what's this? So I finally got to that point. And then the bank said, well, you can only do 250,000 euros at once. So what I did, what I found out, that if you log in and log out, you can do another 250,000.
So after a couple
I did batches. I said like 12 batches, or I don't know what, 14 batches of 250,000 euros to the factory. Like, here you go, and now make that bloody phone. And yeah, that's how we got started. So, and what was even more crazy, and then you get to the economic craziness of how value, is that people started selling, because we were sold out. They started selling the non-existing phone, like the paper, reselling them for twice the amount of money on eBay.
Wow.
So they were selling actually for 600 euros, a Fairphone that didn't exist.
Who was a panicking CEO at that moment?
Yeah, it's tough. But so to get back to how the supply chain works, we needed that cash to be able to build them. So we did that another time, and I always thought we're not going to do another crowdfunding because I will not survive. So we did another one, and that other one actually we raised 10 million, and that was for this phone. And we made this one totally ourselves. So that was really scary. Like, oh, can we make it? Yes, we made it. But at the moment that we launched this one, the panic attacks were so regular that I thought, yeah, no, we have to raise cash. Because we were independent for a very long time on purpose. But if you want to work with MediaMarkt, if you want to work with Orange, if you want to work with the big guys, because we can't grow the company to those numbers we need through e-commerce, or having people pay half a year before they get their phone. You need to invest into working capital, or you need to build working capital. So that's when we, that's where we're now. So actually, our challenge is to keep the producers in China, to really convince them that we will start selling these phones once they make them. And they go like, ooh, let's not make too many because I don't know if they can sell them. So you're in that, and it's very hard to raise cash if you already have a track record of selling phones. So people say, show me the numbers. And then they say, oh, your company's worth this and this and that because you showed me the numbers. It's not like Facebook telling a story about value on, we just had you're telling about the value of your customers and your brand. Well, if factory, they're like, well, fine, but how many phones are you going to make? So that's really the difficult position we're in now. But we were successful in raising cash. So
fantastic. So next step is open to bring Fairphone to Malaga next year with another success story. Let's go over. We're running out of time, so this is a fantastic story. Do you have any questions? Now's your time to ask, please. Ahora hay preguntas, por favor.
Hola, buenas. Una pregunta muy sencillita es saber cuál va a ser la política de actualización de... Bueno, básicamente mi pregunta es cuál va a ser la política de actualización del software del Fairphone. ¿Cada cuánto se va a actualizar la versión de Android? Y los plazos máximos que tienen previsto la durabilidad de una versión del software.
Yeah, so that really depends on also the chipset manufacturer. So you have in the phone, you have a platform, and that has the application processor, the modem, which is made by one of the big guys. In our case, we chose one who is going to, with the first phone, we had one from MediaTek, which is not really well supported for a long time. Whereas with this phone, we actually have a chipset which is better supported also for open source development. So one of the things we do is we secure, so we do monthly, on updates, security updates, we are probably the only phone company that does monthly updates on security patches. So we have a monthly release on all the stuff that Android comes with, which is important to update on. For the upgrades, we rely also quite a lot on the chipset manufacturer and on Google if they're going to support it. If that's not going to happen, if they don't support it, then we need to put more resources in it, which is difficult in our situation because we still need to build a team. So what we've done is to also, because of the open source builds that we actually, or we have a, if you go to open.fairphone.com, you will find an environment, you can download all the binaries, and you can build your own Android version, even Google-free Android versions, so no Google services on it. And they also have ported these on Jolla Sailfish, on Firefox, on Ubuntu. So you can also run other operating systems on it, so that those operating systems are also supported longer through the communities than that we could do only based on the Android versions.
Gracias. ¿Más preguntas ahí arriba? Por favor, un micro ahí arriba. Ahora te cambio.
Well, hello. I'm Victoriano. I'm the CIO from the local university. You know that in bigger environments, we have to go through corporate contracts.
Yeah.
And when you ask the phone company about Fairphone, they say, what? So what would you recommend that we could do to ask the companies to provide Fairphones to our corporate contracts?
I think first of all, thanks that you try to push companies that way. It's really important that you keep asking, and we keep our sales team also involved with the operators. So one of the things that we're doing now is that we're engaging with operators, with resellers. But again, the reason why we couldn't do that yet was because we didn't have the splice. And in that sense, it's really for us the next step is to be able to provide all the also businesses. I think because this phone I think is really also a good phone for business because you have of course the dual SIM. Yeah, you can put two SIM cards in there, private and work, so you need less phones. And also you can change the screen just within a few clicks. So for the IT departments, the CIOs, they love it because you have a pile of stuff and you can just and off you go. So, but if you look at the chipset and the age of the phone, then they will go like, "Ooh, but it's an old phone, but it does everything you need to do." And I think what helps is if you look at the cost of ownership. The cost of ownership for a phone that actually lasts 5 years is a lot lower than a phone that only lasts 2 years. So we will push from our side, you will push from your side, and then we'll hopefully get it done.
Okay, thanks a lot, Bas. We're out of time. It was a great pleasure. Thanks a lot for coming here to tell us about the Fairphone story. And,
you're welcome. Thanks everyone for having me and for your attention.
Thank you. A big applause for Bas.